be used against you in a court of education. So, grow up. Somebody wants to be a baby. I heard a baby in the background. Okay, so in the last two sessions, what I did is go through the dissertation handbook and go through the parts. Have you all seen that video yet? Or been to class? Either one?
Yes.
Yes.
Or may not want things repeated, but I'm sure you have come to class with some questions. Yes, if you have come to class with questions.
My question was primarily about when I started, I had done chapter 1, and then when I listened to the video, I got to go back and put some more references into that. But my primary question concerned the lit review, because I wanted to, and your answer about putting in bold type note, there will be more added to this later, essentially answer my question, because I've got to redo my lit review, and we talked about that on the phone from when I did it last summer, because my topic has changed so much. So that was my big question about the rough draft, I guess, more than any.
Yeah. And you know, complete. So leaving yourself a note in the middle of the paper and a note to me to let me know that you understand that there's a gap there and that you intend to fill it and what you intend to fill it with. That, you know, for the first round, if you run out of time, that's just fine.
Gotcha, because that was, you know, since I was having to do that and gather new references, I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit of leeway there, that I didn't have to stay up all weekend trying to make it come true.
And hopefully a couple of the people that will end up reading your paper will actually get to, you know, give a little feedback, and you know, some may even have some level of expertise and suggest how to fill the gap. All right. So, anybody else have a question ready? Or do you just want to stare at me for a while?
Most of my questions were answered watching the other two meetings like this. But just to clarify, everything, the whole thing is filled with the references of what our research has been, correct?
Yes.
I mean, technically, chapters 1, 2, and 3 are all, they're not, like chapter 1 isn't called a lit review, but it is very similar in that I am supporting everything I am doing with other people, with literature about other people's research and findings and etc. Is that correct?
Exactly. So chapters 1 and 2 are both going to be heavily laden with references. Chapter 3 will have a reference for everything, but some of those are your decisions. So for some lines there won't be a reference, but then when you explain why it makes sense, you might use a reference. So not quite as many in chapter 3, but definitely throughout. You should basically prove that you're not the only one who thinks that way in terms of the methods. And then in chapter 4, when you actually have collected data and you're analyzing it, you get to do the results, and that you basically have almost no references in that one. And then in chapter 5, you just bring some references back to talk about what you think about the findings. But Yeah, you totally got the right idea with chapters 1 and 2.
And repeat the questions in each, right? Correct?
It's very
Repeating the
helpful.
questions.
You put the questions where Karsten Newman has told you to put the questions, and then it's good to repeat it at the beginning of chapter 3, and then we'll bring it back in chapter 5, but you're not ready for that yet.
Right. Okay.
I think I'm on. This is Edna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. The videos were helpful, and also I went ahead and did the online course, and it was helpful too.
Awesome. All right.
So no question at this time.
Now, if you're done with the general kinds of questions about just, how to fulfill the assignment, what we can do with the rest of our time is actually talk about your topics and what you're struggling to find things on, and maybe give some suggestions on maybe some ways of looking things up that you haven't thought of before. Anybody got gaps that are glaring at this point?
I don't think that I do, because there's so much information out there about reading, and in particular adolescent reading. It seems to be a pretty prevalent problem that many
Yes.
people have researched and tried to pinpoint what is the problem and how can we fix the problem, because it's so important as far as young people moving on to high school and being interested in going into higher education after high school. It's such an important part of a quality education, I guess. I don't know, but there's quite a bit out there for me.
Right. Obviously not as important as math, but sure. Whatever.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Anyway, no, reading's more
checkbook,
math, quite
if they
frankly.
can't balance their checkbook, what difference does it make if they can read, right?
Right?
I don't know.
You've got the problem of sorting out, deciding between important and important,
Yes,
which it sometimes is harder.
yes.
All right. Who else has a gap or?
I don't know if I'm going to have a gap. I'm working on underperforming schools. We have schools that have been chronically failing, and our district has an opportunity to write a plan. So I'm looking at some preconditions to address that we've addressed in other schools that have been successful. I'm looking at teacher retention, having no trouble finding information there, transiency and the impact on underperforming schools. I'm finding a lot there. My third one, I haven't really started the search yet, so I don't know if I'm going to run into problems, but I'm thinking about an enriched curriculum, because in our schools that have been successful, they have advanced courses, they have arts, and the underperforming schools do not have those. So I'm going to be looking for information on the impact of an enriched curriculum. I don't really know what to call it yet, so I'll know by tomorrow at the end of the day if I'm having trouble there.
And enriched, so enriched with fine arts and things like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Right, both the arts and like in the high schools, advanced coursework. The underperforming schools don't have the higher math. They don't have advanced placement courses.
Well, interestingly enough, maybe somebody's done this, but if you look at each one of those areas, there's plenty to be spoken of. Now,
okay.
I personally am not aware of those being grouped and looked at as the enriched academic environment. So if you can't find the enriched, what you'll need to do is go pick the pieces up and pull them in, and that'll be your construct of this enriched curriculum that you're talking about.
Okay, I can do that. I wondered if I was going to struggle because I didn't really know what to call it. I just called it enriched curriculum as a placeholder. But I see what you're saying. Look at math. Look at advanced math. Look at the arts. Look at the coursework.
Yep, that's it. That's it.
Okay, that'll save me some time tomorrow.
If nobody has done it, and you get through, all 3 committee members, and they don't have any suggestions for you, then you name it during your dissertation, and you just use that term. So you define it early, and just, if you're a trailblazer, that's what you are. If you find out later that somebody else had a term for it and it was just hard to find, well, you can change it then. But for now, there's plenty to fill in that gap. It's just in parts.
All right. I don't know what I want to be bold enough to be the trailblazer, but I will go for it.
Some people blaze trails because they want to be known as a trailblazer. Most trailblazers are just busy doing stuff, and they just happen to leave a trail behind them. And that's where you are.
Got it.
And that's where the good stuff is done. And now my dogs are attacking each other. Hope there's not too loud back there.
I'm having a hard time finding anything on matched and unmatched supervisors as I'm looking through the research.
Good idea to me when you started talking about it.
So I don't know what I should be looking for or how I should be looking for it.
In the literature on principles, especially with secondary, there's got to be some stuff, because the math teachers don't really want to be analyzed by a principal or an assistant who isn't a math teacher. Just like the art people don't want to be supervised by. So it's not a unique phenomenon, but I would expect it to be within the leadership, but not in the curriculum area specifically, but in the broad sense of who evaluates me, who do I answer to, and have you looked at principal match to who they're evaluating?
No, I haven't looked for that. What I had been looking for was mostly just with supervisors, like any supervisor, with principals or with anything else.
Right. So the word supervisor might not be in any of the articles that talks about the idea that you're taking from another context and putting it on the art supervisor. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The same idea, but
looking
looking for the principle when it doesn't directly.
What I found mostly is just like through evaluations, where people have discussed evaluations where they had a supervisor that is matched with them, and ones where they're not. That's where I'm finding it's just through the evaluation side.
Well, and that's where most of it's going to be. And the reason is the other things that are involved in that supervisor position would be things like resources, funding, hiring, and it just doesn't happen all year. Like most of the budget discussions happen one time a year, and so it doesn't end up as big of a topic. It sort of stuck there, and except you might look up budget things and just break it down by, okay, what does the supervisor do? And now let me go look at that task. So like budgeting, controlling the flow of money. Do you know how I ended up getting graphing calculators at my school for the first time? I think this is pretty relevant. I asked for them every year, and the teachers that were at the school before me asked for them every year, and every year they were denied. And the year I got them, it went like this. The superintendent walked into my classroom and said, I really want to thank you, and my son wants to thank you for the job you did while he was here. He's at college now, and he can see exactly what you were trying to do, and it worked well enough for him, and he just really appreciates that. And I looked at superintendent right in the eye, smiling, and said, I need graphing calculators. And he stuck his head out the door, and he yelled down the hall at the principal, he needs graphing calculators, and I had them in a week. What's the point there? He had no idea what I needed. He had no clue that I needed graphing calculators, even though I tried to convince him for years.
Yeah, I kind of have that situation with my budget because I get a decent budget every year, but I was not allowed to purchase anything that was over a certain amount. So with asking and asking and asking, they're finally letting us divide off our account into equipment and to materials, so I can purchase things that are over that amount for what I need.
Right. So you may have to look in the field of school finance to find the mismatch concept. So what I'm doing is I'm breaking up the job of the supervisor who will speak on behalf of the fine arts, or totally not get it and not be able to make those arguments for them. So, what other tasks does the supervisor do, and how can we look that up for match or mismatch? And that's how you're going to fill those gaps.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, because, evaluation is only one of those jobs, and you found it there, so just keep looking. All right. LaToya, you usually ask me 10,000 questions. Is she even there?
She may be on mute.
Oh, well, yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I guess I'm the only slacker because I haven't watched the videos that you've posted yet.
How dare you? What are you doing?
I know, right? I've been swamped at school, my other school stuff. So the only thing that I think I'm having trouble with right now is just finding quantitative data. I'm finding a lot of qualitative that's supporting my question, like on teacher perspectives of looping.
Yeah.
But there's not been that many studies like I want to conduct. So I'm hoping that will provide more purpose for my study.
Yes, that's the great argument. That's the great argument. And people who like looping tend to be more qualitative when they think about research, quite frankly. So it totally makes sense to me that there's a gap there, and it really needs to be filled if it's going to move forward in any larger sort of way. So, yeah, that makes a great argument. You're going to have to state it in the paper. So you don't have to kill yourself to try to find more. What you can say is, in terms of quantitative studies, they're quite limited, and here's what we have. And for a paragraph, you may only cite one or two references, as opposed to in most paragraphs you'll cite a bunch more. And that has to be okay because that's what you found.
Okay. I'm working on finding my data sources right now. I've already started emailing schools in the state, and I'm not getting a lot of feedback of schools that are looping. So I'm kind of afraid that I'm not going to have a lot of data sources. If I don't find a lot of schools, will I have to do just like maybe a case study with fewer
Yeah.
schools with a smaller population?
And yeah, and that may be where one of the few exceptions where I say, go full mixed methods and you do as much quantitative work as you can and you fill the gaps. So all we can do is the best we can. And that may be why there's not that many quantitative, because the N just doesn't grow until it can be proven, and it can't be proven until the N grows. Kind of a catch-22 research situation.
Okay.
So, yeah, just fill the gaps the best you can, and and your chair will work more with you on recruiting that sample. It's still early in the game, and you might have a breakthrough. And once you know one person who's doing it, they may know other people who are doing it. So you may break through. So it's too early to really be concerned.
Okay.
But
I was a head start maybe on getting those schools.
Mm-hmm. So
it's
we'll
not
have a plan B set up for you.
Okay.
And so your lit review is not going to, and all this work is still going to pay off. It's just a question of what it's going to look like in the end, which is based on the number that you can find.
Okay. I'll continue working on that then.
All right. And watch the videos. They're so exciting. Trust me.
I will watch them tonight, and then I'll probably have a million questions.
Right. Well, I don't think so, because it's pretty mundane, and what you don't already know, there's just some minor things. So make sure you don't skip out for 20 seconds, because that may be where I filled a gap. You really only need to see the second one, session 2, because the first one I covered one of the forms, but the second one I did I think probably a better job covering both of them. So just skip through to whichever one matches. Actually, since you might end up doing a little of both, you might want to watch both quantitative and qualitative portions of it.
Okay. Did you call me out on any of those?
Did I call you out on any of those? Did I call you out and say, well, LaToya? Maybe. I gotta have somebody to pick on.
I'm just joking. I'll watch them tonight.
Right. Okay, and so, but I am just here for the rest of this time to keep answering those questions that I haven't covered so far. So anybody else have one in mind that they want to ask at this point?
Dr. Taylor?
Yes.
I have a question about in the document, or the perspective, the organization of documents or document. How do we go about doing that?
Okay. In the organization of the documents.
Yeah, what goes in there?
Gotcha. Okay. The things that go in this prospectus, if you look at the dissertation handbook, there's a whole section of stuff that happens before chapter 1, and all I care about is the cover page.
Okay.
You're not ready to do the abstract? It's a little early for that, and all that other forwarding material. I don't care. What I want to see is chapters 1, 2, and 3, your early version of it, and so everything that's listed in there is something that you have to do. And so that's so were you here when I covered that on another day?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was looking at the the headings, and that's what I was doing. I actually did watch the videos, but I didn't see that part, and I didn't know if I need to include that as a heading or not.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, for you and Latoya, I'm going to do this real quick. Very quickly, not real quick. Use my language. Okay. So there's the handbook. Tell me when you see it. All right. You should see it in a second. Can you see the handbook yet?
No.
I don't.
I do.
I do as well.
Okay. It just has some lag time, so I had to, so right now what you can see is just the cover. And I'm gonna scroll down to page 8, 9, 10. Okay, here we go. Quantitative dissertation. Tell me when you see that first section that starts with title page.
Got it.
All right, so what we have here is most stuff that you don't need yet. we're not going to go through and do any of this stuff that I've highlighted in blue, and we're just not ready to. If you want to make things easier on yourself, it might be a good idea to start the table of contents. And the only reason to do that is because if you use the headings in Microsoft Word properly, you can actually start a table of contents and it can automatically update itself as you write. If you know how to do that, if you set that up properly, and if you don't, then you should probably look it up on the web, because it'll make things easier when you've got 5 chapters and 70 pages or 100 pages. It'll just be easier because every time you make an edit, you could change the page number on what section starts. So that's just a tip. You can start that now or you can start that later, but if it were me, I'd start it now just to keep things simple. But most important, I just need the cover page for this. You'll do the list of figures and all that other stuff later. I want to see the content of chapters 1 and 2. And on the quantitative one, this is a list of what you need to say. And this should be familiar. The background, the intro, statement of the problem, purpose, theoretical framework. I called it framework, they called it foundation. The research question, the null hypothesis, and the hypothesis. All these things are things that were in the worksheet. So, actually, I didn't mean to scoot that. That's actually good. Now, This thing's messing up on me. Let's try this again. Alright. So if we scroll down to chapter 2 of the quantitative, you can see chapter 2 and 3 here in a second. The list on chapter 2, I'm going to highlight. And can you see the blue highlighting that I put on here?
Yes.
Okay. So, of course, you're going to do some sort of intro that connects it to the previous chapter. That's all good and well. The literature related to topic, specific literature, summaries and critiques, analysis of theories. That's not a list to do in order. That's stuff that should be included in the lit review. It's not really, you don't organize it that way. You organize around your ideas, around your conceptual framework, working from broad to specific. The thing after that, the unresolved issues, significant problems, like Latoya was talking about, this is a big problem. We don't have enough quantitative data. Well, this is your chance to say there is a real absence of significant literature on the or quantitative studies of the effect of looping, and this needs to be addressed with further research. So, I mean, that's a great argument, and you put that towards the end. This evidence that the specific study is from a need, I mean, you've been doing that for 2 chapters. So, to me, that's not on the to-do list. That's a should have been done by now list. Finished up with the unresolved issues and a summary, because that leads you right into the actual study, which starts in chapter 3, and you'll notice that all these parts are very familiar. The only thing I think that's added on here is the time period of the study, but you just put a timeline of how you think it's going to go as you're describing it. And that will tell our readers, the committee in this case, you intend to get it done in a timely fashion. Because they want to know that you're going to graduate. I know that too.
I have a question on the time period.
Yeah?
I'm sorry, I have a question on the time period. So, like, what if I'm using data from the TCAP test from a previous year?
Well, then if previous data is part of your study, then you talk about when you're collecting that existing data. I mean, you're just saying I will gather existing data from the TCAP and blah blah blah, and then here's the new stuff that I'm going to do, and here is the timeline for that. So none of this in chapter 3 should be a big surprise, and you don't need to know chapter 4 yet. For the qualitative side, let's see, I scroll down. Again, you just need the title page for the first section. All right, tell me when you see chapter 1.
I see it.
See it?
Okay. Again, intro, research problem, purpose of the study, research questions, rationale. It's all argument for the study. The new twist is the researcher. Because in a qualitative study, you're expected to have bias. And you share your connections to the study. If you're a teacher at the school, if these are your students, then you talk about that. And you talk about what you expect. If you're doing grounded theory, you give a hypothesis, and then you test that hypothesis against data the rest of the way. So you need to have a bias on the way in qualitative. In quantitative, you're not supposed to have a bias, even though everybody does because they made a hypothesis, and that means they already had one. Go figure. But here we state it, and so definition of terms. Same old. Quick summary. Chapter 2, broad historical literature, theoretical lens. Notice in this one we didn't really include the theoretical until chapter 2. I didn't make the rules, I just follow them. So that's a little bit different between quantitative and qualitative expectations. But it's still going to frame the way you look at things. It's just mentioned a little later. You're still doing the same thing, going from broad to narrow, working it down into the argument for the questions and why it's an important study. And this rolls right down. And there you go, chapter 3. And oh yeah, it's your study, it's the plan for your study, it's the things that you included on the worksheet. The twist there would be the ethical considerations, which is things like how are you protecting the anonymity of your students, and are you doing something that's helpful for one group and not anything that could be considered ethical could be added in there. And this is something that I think is highly based on opinion, so work with your chair specifically on that. For now, take guesses, write a few sentences, and you can work it out later with your chair. The analysis procedure, again, it's what started on the worksheet. It's just, it needs to be in-depth enough to where I could go do the study. I could take your study and I'd know what to do every step of the way, including how I analyze data. And that's the goal for chapter 3, is that someone who is not you should read it and be able to do it like a cookbook. They're not going to come up with the same exact stuff in a qualitative study, and the reason is because they're going to use their lens, because they'd be a different researcher. But the process would still be the same. Alright, does that answer questions? Does it bring up questions? That's funny. I saw a video of somebody's stick shift, I think. If there are no more questions, then I can just hang individual questions and we can wrap it up. As they're driving while they're on Skype. Alright. Are you good, LaToya?
I think so. Like I said, I haven't watched the other videos yet.
Well, I pretty much gave a quick summary of what I said there, but I'm sure I gave more details. It's still a good idea.
Right. I'm kind of wondering, when I asked my question about the timeline or the period, then you said, what new stuff are you doing?
Yep.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, you can look at the TCAP data from the past, but what is there new data that you're generating? For instance, if you were going to do a case study of a couple of schools from past TCAP, also follow that up with survey data from the current teachers. So it is highly encouraged to, if you're using some past data, that you also include some new data that you caused the generation of that data.
Okay, so this might be where my mixed methods come in, where I do a questionnaire and a survey that would be on their perspectives. That would get the qualitative.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Jane, are you good?
I believe I am very good right now.
All right.
I'll probably not be very good when I get started again, but I'm very good right now.
You're driving. Do you have questions? I think she's just sort of there. All right, I'm going through one by one. So Edna, how are you doing?
I am good. I think I'm okay.
Okay. We're moving through. Okay, David, did we get all your questions?
I think so. I think I'm good.
Lindsay.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm good.
Okay, just checking. Gotta make sure we're taken care of. And not last, but we also have Sabra, whose microphone is off presently, but she could actually speak if she wanted to.
Yes, I am good. Better than I was when we started.
Okay, well that's a good answer. I like that, and that's always the good. As there's still always going to be big questions that you have to go find answers to, but I think I've answered the process questions. Now you have to go out and do the rest of the work. All right, then we will sign off. Thank you for showing up, and it's always a pleasure to actually kind of sort of see you a little bit. And I will see you online soon. All right, have a good one.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Have a good weekend.